colleagues, we will start with traditional symbolic giving the Skopje Declaration prepared by Civil Solidarity Platform and about main topic which exactly we choose for the next year. So. So now we started from short presentation of the Skopje Declaration. He is main author of the text. Yuri, please choose the meeting.
Dear colleagues, Your Excellencies, Ministers, Secretary General, heads of institutions, thank you very much for your interest, your attention, for finding time in your busy schedule. The Skopje Declaration of the Parallel Civil Society Conference that you have just received is 26 pages long. We don't have time to go, of course, to all the details, but we very much hope that you and your teams will be able to study the analysis and recommendations by civil society. This is a serious document, and a lot of work is put in it. Given the very short time we have, I will only be able to highlight some of the key conclusions and findings. There are 10 chapters, and we start with the notion that when the OBSE is needed most in times of crisis, it is paralyzed by their abusers. We speak about the worst crisis that the OBSE, its participating states, and our public go through these days. And the OBSE, in order to fulfill its mission and address this terrible security crisis that encompasses all three dimensions, needs to be in an excellent shape for it is not. It is paralyzed by two states who are systematic abusers of the Helsinki principles and systematically undermine and block the organization's ability to adopt decisions, appoint heads of institutions, and choose chairpersonship, and on and on and on. In a normal organization, such abusers would be suspended or expelled. However, in the OBSE, we don't have written charter, and therefore, this situation when 55 states are held hostage, essentially by the two abusers, we need to find creative ways to essentially isolate them and enable the organization to take decisions and move forward through different means, and essentially find solutions for this internal crisis so that the organization is able to address the external, global, real-life crisis that we're dealing with. Moving on this Russian aggression against Ukraine, we strongly believe that while the war crimes and crimes against humanity continue on a daily basis, we need to understand that this is not just a conflict of the two states, it's a global threat, and if the aggressor is not stopped now, the danger of war spreading to other countries is very real. In an ideal world, a diplomatic settlement, of course, would be the best solution. However, such a settlement can be based only on the norms of international law, restoring the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and a lot of other important conditions already spelled out by the Ukrainian people and leadership, and we support this position. Russian Federation is not ready to negotiate on such conditions, and therefore all the support, as much as possible, needs to be provided to Ukraine now, including political, economic, and military. Of course, much of it can be done only outside of the OBSE, but positions, expert assessments, discussions within the OBSE prepare the ground for these decisions by states in their bilateral and other multilateral foreign policy efforts and security policy efforts. Of course, this should also include undermining the Kremlin's ability to wage the war and development of the effective compensation and reparation mechanism. Moving on, ensuring accountability for this crime is absolutely essential for justice, for prevention of new crimes. And we talk about two types of crimes: crimes against humanity and war crimes is one group, and the other, the crime of aggression. It's a massive scope of crimes which the Ukrainian justice system will be not able to cope alone, obviously. The problem is, of course, not with documentation, which is abound, but with jurisdiction. We deal with the jurisdiction gap, and even if the ICC is able to indict, which we very much hope, the top leadership, it will be only top leadership, the key officials responsible for these crimes. However, a special international tribunal, possibly of a hybrid nature, based on a combination of the Ukrainian justice system and international tools, needs to be established to address war crimes against humanity, which are enormous in their numbers. Separately, a tribunal, a special tribunal, to try the crime of aggression is absolutely essential, and this one has to be truly international to overcome the immunity protection and deal with the objective, impartial delivery of justice. So we talk about two international tribunals of a different nature and different jurisdictions. Very close to this was our discussion on ending impunity and delivering justice, ensuring accountability for crimes against humanity in Belarus. 3 years after the beginning of the massive wave of repression, impunity continues to prevail. There is no working mechanism of international justice, and this emboldens the dictator to not only continue to, but expand the repression. As we speak, as we are meeting now, massive searches imposed of opposition leaders across the country are taking place, with intimidation of their relatives, and the threat of the death penalty for high treason is what the government, the de facto authorities are discussing. This is very serious. So there are reasonable grounds to believe that not just gross human rights violations, but crimes against humanity have been committed for 3 years at least. This has been confirmed by the UN High Commissioner's investigation, examination it is called, numerous civil society reports and documentation, and unfortunately hopes for universal jurisdiction work in national justice systems have not been met. They are stumbling, these investigations, for a number of objective and subjective reasons, and need to use other instruments and tools. These would be not sufficient anyway. So we are talking about launching an ICC investigation, the International Criminal Court investigation, by any state party to the Rome Statute, submitting a referral of the situation in Belarus and neighboring countries by the virtue of combination of crimes of persecution inside Belarus and deportation in neighboring countries, which are state parties to the Rome Statute, the crime of deportation. So that allows for the jurisdiction, and this will be very serious. All other crimes against humanity do not fall under the ICC jurisdiction, and we strongly believe that establishing a special tribunal specifically focused on crimes against humanity in Belarus is absolutely necessary. Finally, the interstate, or rather, state responsibility of Belarusian authorities has to be addressed through the International Court of Justice for violation of the Convention Against Torture and CEDAW at the very least. And this can be done by any state party or through these two conventions. And finally, it is imperative to bring Lukashenko and his associates to justice for complicity in the Russian aggression against Ukraine, when and if this international tribunal on the aggression will be established, and also for crimes against humanity against Ukrainians, including deportation of Ukrainian children to Belarus, and incitement to genocide of Ukrainian people as a national group. Moving on, in Russia, of course, the conviction for recognizing through judicial mechanisms of Vladimir Putin and his associates as international criminals is absolutely essential for the ending of the war, for justice for the victims, reparations, but it is also very important for the future of Russia. When Russian people will know that Putin and his associates are international criminals recognized by a tribunal and are wanted by a tribunal, this will help to prevent the continuation of Putinism, the revanchism, the nurturing of resentment, and the possibility of new aggressive wars. However, we should also see the difference between Putin and his associates and a strong number, big number of his supporters in the Russian society, and those in the Russian society who oppose the war and the aggression and Putin's dictatorship. There are many, millions of them. They are in a minority today, but they are struggling against the war, against aggression, against the dictatorship, despite all the terrible risks associated with the draconian laws, repression, and so on. We should see them as important allies and support them in their struggle. Moving on to the next chapter, which is logically looking at conflicts across the OBSE region. We believe that the OBSE, we all are dealing with proliferation of conflicts. It's not only the worst war of aggression against Ukraine, but also, of course, other violent conflicts, including the recent Nagorno-Karabakh war and many others. And we see the paradox when the OBSE has enormous expertise, institutional capacity, tools to work with conflicts. The use of force by states in resolving disputes is growing. The disregard of the OBSE principles and the lack of the cooperation by states with these instruments, this is what we observe. And we call on the very serious review of the OBSE work on conflicts, including much stronger cooperation with civil society, which is essential, including women's groups and communities affected by conflicts. This is essential for making the OBSE work on conflicts more effective. Next chapter is on shrinking civil society space, a problem that has been on top of our agenda for years. And this year we are saying that it's not only repression and crackdown, but really a war against civil society by a number of governments of participating states, aimed at complete elimination of independent civil society through repressive laws and practices, adoption of new laws in the wartime that justifies this repression, the war. We also see the growth of trans-border repression, and a number of our colleagues are imprisoned right now, including our colleague and friend Ales Bialyatsky from Belarus, who should have been here during this conference. Democratic states and OBSE institutions and leadership of the OBSE should address the problem of shrinking space much more seriously. We reiterate a number of our recommendations, including continuation of the practice launched by the North Macedonian chairpersonship of appointing a special representative on civil society, and a number of other concrete recommendations are included there. We would like you to take them very seriously. The chapter 8 is on torture and enforced disappearances. Very briefly, I have to say that MC Decision 720, adopted 3 years ago in Tirana, is a landmark, a historical opportunity for the OBSE to reinvigorate its work on torture prevention, and it includes new commitments on incommunicado detention in prison, that is enforced disappearances, and victim-centered approach, integrated approach. We see that, in fact, implementation of these commitments has deteriorated in the last 2 years. We do constant monitoring and research, and the problem of disappearances requires much attention, since it is now part of the OSCE commitment. We suggest, first and foremost, that ODIHR, that chairpersonships and all the relevant bodies, and of course participating states, develop action plans to implement Decision 720, to make it working in real life. Last two chapters, well, first is very straightforward, which is speaking about other key challenges, and there is just a list, gender inequality, climate crisis, abuse of media freedom, democratic backsliding, abuse of security concerns to trample of human rights, artificial intelligence, peaceful assemblies, racism, xenophobia and hate crime, managing migration in a human rights compliant way, and fighting transborder corruption. All of these are very serious. And this brings me to the last chapter, which is approaching the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Accords and the final act, a moment to reinvent the OSCE. We strongly believe that major reforms are needed in order to make the organization fit to respond to the ongoing major crisis and a number of other new and old challenges, persistent challenges, and a very strong reflection process needs to be launched now, not waiting until 2025. That would help to overcome the paralysis and invent new ways for the organization to be able to work. This process should be launched now, involve not only states and diplomats, but civil society, academia, parliamentarians, societies, so that OSCE is well grounded in society and owned by members of the public, so that by 2025 we have a list of concrete suggestions to discuss and agree on, so that OSCE can move forward beyond the year of its 50th anniversary. We, in the Civic Solidarity Platform, are committed to working with the incoming chairpersonships and all interested partners for this reflection process and developing a set of suggestions, recommendations on strengthening the OSCE, reforming it, and making it fit for the current crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear the statement of our leaders, leaders of OSCE Troika, and General Secretary and Head of Offices of OSCE. So we please ask to come and say your reaction for our declaration for His Excellencies Buyaris Mani, OSCE Chairman in Office, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of North Macedonia.
Thank you so much. Good evening to all. I don't know whether I should be happy for the good turnout that I see some ambassadors standing, or I should feel bad that we have not provided enough space for everyone. But anyway, I'm pleased to welcome you all to the 2023 Parallel Civil Society Conference, and I'm honored that it takes place in Skopje, the capital of this year's chairpersonship of North Macedonia. And as you all know, the motto of the 2023 chairpersonship of North Macedonia is "It's about people." North Macedonia knows very well the crucially important role that civil society plays in fostering respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law for our people. And I'm convinced that there is a clear and positive correlation between a strong, diverse, and vibrant civil society on the one hand, and on the other hand, the strength of democratic institutions, the rule of law, and tolerant and inclusive communities. Conversely, where we see that the space for civil society is shrinking, we see democratic backsliding, the rule of law eroding, and the curtailing of fundamental freedoms, civic and political rights. These linkages were also documented in last year's Moscow Mechanism report on the Russian Federation by Professor Nussberger, who pointed to the years of increased repression at home as precursors to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine abroad. Excellencies, dear colleagues and civil society representatives, exactly 1 year ago, at the 2022 Parallel Civil Society Conference in Łódź, in Poland, I underlined the important role of civil society in OSCE affairs and the importance we would attach to it as the incoming OSCE chair. In which I also announced my intention to establish the first OSCE chairperson in office, special representative on civil society, and I appointed Mr. Andreas Stejkowski to this important role and responsibility. I have also made sure to meet civil society representatives when on official country visits as chairperson in office. I have done so because civil society participation in OSCE affairs and events has always been and remains one of the greatest added values of this organization. No other international organization comes even close. We have equally made sure that civil society had the opportunity to participate and contribute to all our CIO conferences throughout the year. Here I would in particular like to highlight the third OSCE Supplementary Human Dimension meeting in June, combining two of our overall priorities, namely the role of civil society and the promotion of tolerance and non-discrimination. Some of the key outcomes of this conference were the conclusions that, and I quote, experience in the OSCE region and beyond has shown that civil society actors are indispensable for addressing all forms of intolerance and discrimination, and to, and I quote, given the role it plays in countering various forms of unequal treatment and prejudice, it is important that state authorities ensure that civil society has access to resources and enabling environment, unquote. We can, of course, not talk about the role of civil society in OSCE affairs without mentioning the 2023 Warsaw Human Dimension Conference, the largest human rights conference in Europe this year. Over 1,400 representatives from governments, international organizations, civil society and others signed up to take part in this truly unique platform. The conference report with its recommendation have been collated and soon be published on the OSCE website. Excellencies, dear colleagues and civil society representatives, I have listened with great interest to the presentation of your outcome document, and I commend you for all the hard work that went into drafting, coordinating and consolidating the 2023 Skopje Declaration. This is a very solid document and robust call to action. The declaration with its analysis and recommendations will be carefully studied in detail and shared with our relevant stakeholders for follow-up. And I call on other participating states present here today and encourage them to do the same. I do not wish here today to highlight some of your recommendations over others. Like our OSCE commitments, they are equally important and valuable. Still, I would have to say that I cannot but fully agree with your assessment of the OSCE being at critical crossroads. At a time when the OSCE, with all its toolboxes, are more needed than ever, its ability to apply those tools are also more restricted than ever. I therefore join you in your call for urgency in finding a way out of unblocking the potential of the OSCE. It is in the interest of the vast majority of our governments, but more importantly, in the best interest of all our more than 1 billion people. Excellencies, dear colleagues and civil society representatives. As the 2023 OSCE chairpersonship of North Macedonia is coming to an end, so do my remarks here at the Parallel Civil Society Conference. Let me conclude by once more thanking the Civic Solidarity Platform and their member organizations for all their crucial work this year for the OSCE and for our participating states. But first and foremost, the indispensable work you have done for our people. Ultimately, it's all about them. And I thank you for your attention and wish you and us very success in the follow-up to the 2023 Skopje Declaration. Thank you so much.
Happy to hear Her Excellency Elina Valtonen, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Finland, our future Finnish OSCE chairmanship in 2025. Chairpersonship.
So much.
Should be on.
It's on. Trying to make that stuff of it. Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear civil society participants. Let me start by thanking the Civic Solidarity Platform for organizing this OSCE Parallel Civil Society Conference. The thorough Skopje Declaration, which you have prepared, will be carefully studied. I would also like to thank North Macedonia, dear Bujar and team, for supporting civil society throughout your OSCE chairperson. No other organization can match the OSCE in terms of broad-based and open civil society engagement. Ever since the Helsinki Final Act, civil society has played a key role in monitoring participating states' human rights commitments. Finland highly values the many opportunities for meaningful dialogue with civil society, which we will safeguard also during our chairpersonship in 2025. Supporting civil society is ever more important at a time when its space has been shrinking. The Skopje Declaration rightly underlines the alarming scale of armed conflicts and increased repression that the OSCE region has witnessed during the past year. Russia continues its brutal war of aggression against Ukraine, breaking the core principles and commitments of the European security order. Let me reaffirm Finland's unwavering support for Ukraine. Russia must be held to account for its violations of international law. There is also a clear link between international repression of fundamental freedoms and external aggression, which is rightly pointed out also in the Skopje Declaration. We need to expand the route for maneuver for civil society, including in Russia and Belarus. Dear colleagues, as the declaration takes note of many OSCE tools, I would like to share one hopefully very useful innovation. Finland has created the OSCE Toolbox portal, which gives an overview of all the tools that the OSCE, its participating states and institutions have at their disposal. I've learned that this tool will be in app stores next week, so please download and make use of it. I hope you will find the time to get familiar with it. Dear civil society participants, thank you for being here today. Finland places special emphasis on supporting civil society and human rights defenders. Finland will continue to strengthen the meaningful participation of civil society organizations as we are preparing to assume the OSCE chairpersonship in 2025. So thank you so much for inviting me to this conference. I encourage everyone to make the most of this opportunity for dialogue with civil society representatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. And now we want to give the floor for Moitse Gabriel. You represent the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, who was previous chair in office 2020.
Good evening, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, members of the civil society organizations. Thank you to the Civic Society Platform for organizing this event. It's a great honor to take the floor. I promised just to take a few minutes, but it's my second time to Skopje in a short time. I was here just a few months ago to the press forum, and I was so impressed with the kind of with the panache, with the you know, the broad international participation in this forum, and I was already impressed, and now this OSCE event, so I can really see the international position of North Macedonia really, you know, taking the proper place and riding, which is, I wanted to congratulate the minister on all this very successful events, and always very nice to be back. And thank you, Minister, for mentioning the Warsaw Conference on Human Rights and the WUCH and so on. We did our best, but we are also very much appreciating everything you are doing and very much looking forward to what our friends from Finland are going to do next year. It's a sense of kind of a common. Everyone is of us is very driven. No, it's really not a small thing. It's very important to see, and I think it's very important that we approach it with such a sense of purpose and seriousness. And the last thing before I have written remarks, but I promise I will keep it short. But I also, the professor mentioned so many important things, but one thing that stood out also was this issue of accountability when it comes to the Russian invasion on Ukraine. And of course, as Poland, we have been working on it very strongly with all the others. And it's such an intricate issue, you know, the special tribunal, the question of mixed jurisdiction or what kind of tribunal. There's so many discussions among very good experts. You know, we take the note that you know, there's the voice that also the leadership crime of aggression also. The crime of aggression is a leadership crime, so it's also something to be kept in mind, and I think Ukraine is underlying the importance of this approach too. So, and also thank you very much for mentioning Belarus. But back to the OSCE. The OSCE is a particular international forum renowned for the broad participation of civil society organizations in its work. Civil society members were particularly visible during the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference in October 2023, one of the biggest events of the OSCE chairmanship. Of North Macedonia, dedicated to the promotion of human rights. The conference gathered more than 1,000 participants. It also served as an important forum for human rights defenders from the whole OSCE area. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to protect civil society, which has come under increasing pressure in some countries of the OSCE region. This dire trend related to severe and systematic restrictions or even elimination of space for civil society, often based on accusations of extremist activity, is truly alarming. It is our common obligation of all participating states to support and protect human rights activists and independent journalists, especially in such countries where they face persecutions. Ladies and gentlemen, Poland remains strongly alarmed by the continuous repressions targeting civil society, independent journalists, media outlets, lawyers, human rights defenders, and representatives of national minorities in Belarus. Thank you for leaving this space for Alex Bilecki. And we also very often mention Mr. Andrzej Poczobut also, another, but there are many more. Poland is also deeply concerned about the dramatically deteriorating situation of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the Russian Federation over the last years. This has been particularly evident in the context of Russia's brutal, unprovoked, and unjustified aggression against Ukraine. Since the start of the war of aggression against Ukraine, the Russian authorities significantly escalated their relentless attacks against civic activism, independent journalism, and political dissent. The Kremlin's main goal is to silence public opposition to the war and any criticism of the government. Those actions caused an unprecedented crackdown on civil society and independent media. Therefore, we greatly value the presence of Russian civil society representatives at the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference. Standing up for human rights and fundamental freedoms in such an oppressive system requires a lot of courage. Just like all other OSCE participating states, Russia pledged to protect and promote human rights and fundamental freedoms, democracy, tolerance, non-discrimination, and the rule of law. We all shall hold it accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
as you have noticed, in the Troika, that we have just had the privilege to listen to representatives of, we don't have a representative of the incoming chairpersonship, because there is no decision yet, just a month before the start of the next term. Hopefully, yes, we also look forward to hearing good news tomorrow, but we are very glad, very happy about the strong Troika, the continued engagement of Poland, strong leadership by North Macedonia, and stepping in by Finland early on, sort of to fill the void and demonstrate the leadership by example. Thank you. Now I have the privilege to invite Helge Schmidt, Secretary General of the OBSE, to the podium.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, dear Civic Solidarity Platform. It's now the third time I have the pleasure to be with you ahead of an MC this year in Skopje. And I just want to say how much I appreciate these exchanges and how important your recommendations are. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we have not, so I will be very short in my remarks. But just to say first, I think your support is more important than ever, because when we talk about the OBSE's comprehensive approach, which is unique, it's not only, we don't only mean the importance of the human dimension of security, we also talk about the close and regular cooperation with civil society, not only once a year, but really throughout the year. And this is really so important. Now, in your declaration, you highlight the terrible consequences of war, of conflict, obviously with a particular focus on Ukraine. And let me say that we have been supporting the government and civil society in Ukraine to address these consequences through humanitarian demining and by also helping, for example, to provide psychosocial support to women and children. I'm saying that because also part of your recommendation is the women. We have created a dedicated platform for Ukrainian women to work on conflict resolution, but also conflict-related sexual violence. And this includes, for example, exchanges between Ukrainian women civil society representatives and Bosnian women-led civil society to address the impact of this violence, but also to share how to best support survivors and to enhance accountability. This is important, and also previous speakers and others have referred to it. We have also supported, for example, summer schools in cooperation with the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, to the Supreme Court and the National School of Judges. So more than 100 young legal professionals have received training on rights, international justice, but again on accountability mechanisms, just to give some concrete examples. I could, in the brevity of time, just to say the war against Ukraine remains a priority, and I'm grateful to our current chair, the previous also Polish chair, for having been so consistent defending the principles and commitments of this organization. We are also witnessing, and this will be my last word, a rollback on women's rights in so many countries, not to forget Afghanistan, which is a hell for women these days. And I'm also very concerned about the persistently high levels of violence against women and girls. For example, we are now in the 16 days of activism, and I've just hosted a discussion on femicide and how we can do more to prevent this most heinous of crimes. But also women are not only victims. We work to promote women's equality and recognize also women as agents of change. So, this is important. We've also launched a Young Women for Peace initiative to support also young women and peace builders across the OBSE, including in Ukraine again, but also in Afghanistan. So I stop here, only a few examples of what we do, but I have to say much is done in very close cooperation with civil society actors, also upon their recommendations and upon their advice. And of course, there is so much more we should do, and I really look forward to our cooperation and also to the recommendation. Again, thanks for that. This will be a very, very valuable source for us and for our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have to make a very difficult decision. to let members of the Troika and Secretary General to go. We don't want them to go, but they have to. They have other meetings. They're already late for them, so we thank you. It's been a complex day with lots of changes, last minute. That's real life. We are dealing with, work in progress. Thank you.
And we're waiting the good news tomorrow. OSC, ODIR director. So closest, I think, for cooperation with NGO all the year. And today at the conference, we see like minimum 3 of colleagues and specialists from our Office of Democracy and Human Rights. So, Nadja, please.
Not just this year, but for many years, I would say.
Thank you. And as an optimist, we always have to say the best is yet to come. So the best is yet to come. So, but thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you all, of course, also to the ambassador, colleagues from different institutions, me, Parliamentary Assembly, High Commission for National Minority, Ribeiro from representative from Freedom of the Media, but all of you participants. It's also my third time that I've been here, but as you remember, I've been part of this network for many, many years, and I'm privileged to be here as director of this. To be at this moment for us, it is not a ritual event. It's an important conference that reminds the entire organization, not only here, because as you mentioned, we work with civil society organizations throughout the year in many, many aspects. I would say in all aspects of our work, we always include civil society. But to remember that this is central to the work for the entire organization. I think there is progress that you have highlighted that we can make in this regard. And I'm hopeful that when the organization continue to work for the future, we will find also ways to address these things. Your work that you do, both as a network, but also at the national level, because I know that many of you are experts in your own country, or in your own thematic areas. It's really important for us, for upholding and advancing human rights, but also in keeping our societies truly democratic, pluralistic, and free. And we see challenges that you have highlighted, of course, in the declaration, but we see also other challenges. And I would say even in countries that have a more long-established tradition of democracy, when we see rule of law eroding, when we see elections being challenged, when we see political participation being diminished. So this is something where we need to keep a close eye on. I know that you have been having important discussions. My colleagues have been following. I've also been participating in some of your sessions. But just to name a few issues of violations of human rights in time of conflicts, it's an area where we work very closely. Protecting the civil space, of course, the role of civil society is clearly undermined in many countries, but also the question of torture prevention that you have highlighted, and in which we are trying to make progress, also offering participating states new tools to really prevent torture in cases of detention, for example, with the Mandela rules and the trainings that we are providing to participating states. But anyway, we are happy to continue our cooperation and to participate, as we have been doing, thanks to the chair. It was mentioned a couple of times. The World Human Dimension Conference this year was once again a successful event. Hundreds and hundreds of civil society participants participated over 2 weeks, having, of course, a hard look at the problems and the challenges that we face when it comes to human rights violations, which are very serious in a number of countries within the OBSE. But also, it was an opportunity to highlight the great and persistent work that many civil society organizations continue to do. But also, I would say, it was a unique opportunity also to have some difficult discussions between participating states and civil society organizations, which are not happening in other forums or in other places. So I would really encourage all of you to try to use the opportunity of the World Human Dimension Conference to engage, to reach out, even to states that maybe so far have not responded, because there have been a few cases where some meaningful dialogue has started to happen. Of course, it's not the end of the road, it's a beginning, but we have to continue to work with a hopeful outlook of the future. Just briefly on the issue that has been mentioned about the measures that are taken against civil society organizations in many countries. This is a deep concern for us. we have some tools that we try to apply. Sometimes it works. If we have partners in the country, whether it's a civil society organization, or for example, ombudsperson institution, with whom we can work together. But we have to do a better job to work in a united way to push back against these efforts, starting from supporting civil society organizations, also from participating states with financial means, which is also an important element of the restriction of the ability of a civil society organization to operate, but also human rights defenders. Human rights defenders are under attack in many countries, including, I would say, in countries that for a long time have been supporting of democracy and human rights. If you look at the issue of migrants, the refugees, this is something that is happening in many places. But of course, you have highlighted in your declaration the situation in Belarus and in the Russian Federation, and the situation of civil society and human rights defenders is very, very serious, and we try to do our best quietly, vocally, all the tools that we can use to try to help to find positive solutions. Finally, also, the work in Ukraine is a priority, and continues to be a priority for us. In a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, we will publish the fourth interim report on violations of possible violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. We have interviewed over 300 witnesses with in-depth interviews, which we hope will be helpful to the accountability mechanisms which are existing or will be established to ensure that justice can be ensured for the victims of these crimes. But we have engaged also with the parliament, the civil society organization, working on Roma and Sinti issues in Ukraine, and this work will continue. Finally, what you have mentioned in the declaration is the link between the fragile security situation that we face and the connection with the weakening of democratic institutions and the respect of human rights. This is something which is at the basis of the OSCE, and here is working, operating on the basis of this principle. So we just need to continue to call on all OSCE participating states that this is essential. The respect for human rights is not a sort of a privilege for more, developed or more affluent society. This is basically to ensure our collective security. Without that, we cannot continue to live freely in any part of the OSCE, unfortunately. So this is something that we continue to advocate. So once again, thank you for the close partnership that we continue to have, and we look forward to having more opportunities to discuss together and to find ways to be helpful for the common goal that we will share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Makachi. Well, we have had indeed many years of very strong and good cooperation with ODIHR. And thank you and you and your team for that. But we all need to do more these days because the crisis is unprecedented. In our Skopje declaration, we have a number of specific recommendations, requests to ODIHR, and among them I would highlight one, if I may. Sorry for putting you on the spotlight. Well, last year we had a nice, encouraging surprise from the North Macedonian chairpersonship announcing the establishment of the mandate of the Special Representative on Civil Society. So we really also need some good news soon. We very much need an expert panel on torture prevention at ODIHR. We have been asking for this for a number of years. This is really important because we need to put Decision 720 to work. And the situation with torture and inhuman degrading treatment and enforced disappearances across the OSCE region is deteriorating. Civil society has enormous expertise and presence on the ground. This excellent document has to be put to work. Without this expert panel and contribution by civil society, this will be continuing to be difficult. Please take this into account. Sorry.
Thank you again. And now we ask for the floor Teresa Ribeiro, OSCE, representative freedom of the media. Like you know, that the media is usually one of the first targeting group in any conflicts, and now at the difficult times for my my country personally, exactly journalists take a huge and dangerous work at the front line to give us details and news from there. So
Thank you very much for this introduction that it really meets everything that I just reported to the Permanent Council last week, and it's precisely the backsliding of democracy, the erosion of media freedom, and I recommend all the participants to look at this report. Unfortunately, not with very good news, but still I think it's important because it's illustrative of what is going on in our societies, and unfortunately not only in some parts of our region, but unfortunately it's across the entire region, in all parts of the OSCE. So, but first of all, so dear participants in this conference, it's really a pleasure to be here with you at this Parallel Civil Society conference, and especially to receive your outcome document that you shortly but eloquently present to us. This is clear that this event is now a long-standing tradition of the OSCE, and of course I congratulate you all for your very, very important and outstanding work and key contribution to promoting peace and human rights across the OSCE region, and proposing solutions to the challenges this organization is facing, and not only this organization, but our societies, our communities. It is it is a real challenging time for our common security. For obvious reasons, we have a war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, that is caused a lot of devastation and suffering. And I share your sense of urgency when you speak about the need to start a critical and very honest process and reflection and process on the way forward. I think this is very important. We need action, and we need to rehumanize the world by putting human beings at the center of our action, because it's an illusion, and we are facing this dilemma nowadays that responses to security challenges can be found in one-sided approaches, and forgetting that they will never succeed without a strong presence and commitment to human rights. Of course, this requires strengthening our democratic institutions and the rule of law, preserving and defending media freedom. Let's not forget that for the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the motto was precisely freedom of expression as an enabler of the other human rights, and this is very important. And investing in a resilient and well-informed citizenry and an active and empowered civil society, and you are a very, very strong example of how it can be done. And then yes, we can start thinking that we can provide sustainable responses for our today's uncertainties. For us, my institution, cooperation with civil society is essential, and more than that, it's a source of legitimacy of our work. And I think this is also very important. Last week, I had the pleasure to present to the OSCE participants 3 new resources that we have developed over the past months: the Safety of Journalists Toolbox, the guidelines for monitoring online violence against female journalists, and the Safe Resource Hub that is very much related to artificial intelligence and the impact of media expression. And I think these innovative tools that were closely developed with in cooperation with the media community, civil society, academia, will be useful for those members among the Civic Solidarity platform working in the field of media freedom and safety of journalists. So I invite you to visit our website, where you'll find further information. Unfortunately, time is running. We are running out of time. But what I can assure is that despite all the uncertain and challenging times ahead, the RFOM, of course, remains committed to the principles and purpose of the OBSE and the future of our organization and the future of media freedom depends on our sense of shared responsibility. And I salute your tireless contribution to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, well, your focus of your office and your own on safety of journalists, especially women journalists, is really something that we very much appreciate and value. There's one thing that we would appreciate, an extra effort by your office, your team and yourself, is on the use of media freedom for misinformation, propaganda, hate speech, incitement to war. This is an engine of the aggression, an engine of conflicts that we are dealing so acutely these days. So we need your leadership in this. Thank you.
Thank you again. And now I just remind you that one of the topics, North Macedonian chairpersonship 2023, that was exactly really like a lot of attention for question of non-discrimination and supporting Roma and Sinti. And now we want to ask to the floor Kairat Abdurrahmanov, who is the High Commissioner of National Minorities. I just remind you that this position and work of these representatives are exactly one of the results of many years, and you're asking about that. So,
Thank you very much. Good evening, dear participants. Protocol observed, we are really now in hurry because in a few moments, most probably the long with the above-mentioned dialogue might start over the informal dinner so kindly organized by North Macedonia and Prime Minister Burian for the heads of delegations. So that's why I really apologize for being maybe too short in spite of such a large region in front of all of us. So thank you so much for this invitation, and this Parallel Civil Society Conference continues the traditions of parallel conferences that we have first held. I remind you, and I'm so glad to see some of you, those who participated in the same conference, which was in fact at that time named Parallel Summit in Astana in 2010. So, and then it was also organized in the capitals of the distinguished chairships of our organization. So this unique event gives an opportunity for you, for distinguished representatives of civil society organizations, to not only seek answers by posing questions, some of them are very tough questions, and highlighting issues which are so important today, but also suggest some solutions. And this forum also gives civil society an opportunity to discuss strategies, compare notes, and formulate recommendations to guide and inform the OBSE political leaders, institutions, and participating states. So in the interest of time, I will immediately address the key points in the declaration presented to us today, and which are of interest for my institution. The declaration acknowledges numerous challenges that OBSE is facing now and provides some key recommendations as to what we can do to address them. And I share your concerns and agree that we can and must do more. At the same time, the divisions, uncertainty and polarization that exists within and beyond OBSE should not deter us from holding a dialogue and make additional efforts to reach a common ground. And the OBSE remains among the biggest regional platform for cooperation and security in increasingly divided multilateral arena, and we must do everything to preserve the integrity and functionality of institutions that allow such meaningful dialogue. So civil society organizations represent the conscience of our society, and as such are able to act on behalf of the communities they represent, and that is why within my mandate I stress the importance of interacting with civil society organizations, and I make, together with my team and my core team, they present here, and so proud of this fact. I make an obligatory point in my program during all my official visits to all parts of the OBSE region, from Vancouver to Vladivostok or Ulaanbaatar, and most recently from Karachok and Tromsø to, and I hope next year to Mediterranean area, the heads of institutions will be able to travel. So, and most recently, my trip and meeting with representatives of the civil society representing interests of indigenous Sami people, as well as of ethnic and national minorities of beautiful and very sustainable Norway took place. So this was my latest so far trip. Indeed, the core aspects of the work of my office rests on partnerships, consultations and collaboration with civil society, including national minority women, youth, human rights defenders, local peace leaders and community groups, and I am grateful for the enduring relationship and to your active engagement. I also wish to remind everyone that, as you may recall, last year, in which the declaration called for the OBSE to review its cooperation with civil society, including meaningfully women and women's organizations, and enhance civil society engagement in all of OBSE activities. And this type of cross-dimensional engagement is necessary across all OBSE region, and last year's declarations also called for a creative interpretation of the mandates of OBSE institutions, Secretary General and the Secretariat, allowing them to be more effective and task us for more active use of the powers of OBSE chairpersonship. And creative thinking is what we need in the stalemate situation that the OBSE finds itself this year. And creative approaches have been also been sought by the current chairpersonship of North Macedonia with respect to the issues that are posing an existential threat to the future of the OBSE next year. And I would like to comment on the declaration's points that are relevant to my mandate of conflict prevention vis-à-vis national minorities, and in particular I commend the call for gender-sensitive conflict analysis, including the differential impact of conflict which needs to be developed in the OBSE. And I wholeheartedly agree that the active involvement of women, especially conflict affected women and their networks, should be safeguarded. And to this end, I want to highlight that earlier this year, my office, together with Secretary General presented research findings on the intersectionality of gender and national minorities, which is based on cooperation between my office and the OBSE Secretariat's program on gender issues. And the results of this research show that engagement in civil society is usually one of the key avenues which minority women have to access political life and peace and security efforts, and as such should be capitalized upon. And taking this into account, my office is currently exploring the possibility to formalize a set of recommendations specifically focusing on the intersectionality of gender, national minorities and security. Despite our efforts, I should declare it with deep regret, minority issues continue to be instrumentalized, and this drives a wedge between different groups within society. And addressing these issues related to national minorities presents an opportunity to build social cohesion through diversity management policies that include the effective participation of national minorities in public, political, social and economic life. And my office recently published the 10th already set of recommendations on the effective participation of national minorities in social and economic life, and it should provide useful guidelines also for you and without any doubts to governments of your distinguished nations. I'm not going to stop on country-specific things raised both in the declaration, but as my honorable friend Teresa Ribeiro mentioned, you may find in our traditional reports before Permanent Council of the OBSE information about work on this direction. Let me conclude my remarks by welcoming in your name all representatives of very vibrant civil society, and thank you for your commitment to serve your communities, and please don't forget that all your communities have various kinds of identities, national, ethnic, cultural, religious, linguistic one, and thank you for serving to better the lives of the people you represent.
Diversity, like the principle of the OBSE.
Thank you, dear. Well, the work of your team and your own in early warning is indispensable. It's really of key importance, and many people don't know about it because it is often confidential. But we know and appreciate it. Please, we need your help in overcoming the divide between the early warning, which is excellent, and early action, which is missing. So we really count on your contribution. Our last speaker, but certainly not the least, is our dear friend, Margareta Söderfeldt, the President Emeritus. I think that's the right term. Also the past President of the OBSE Parliamentary Assembly. Margareta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen.
Microphone.
Oh, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to say thank you for inviting OBSE Parliamentary Assembly to take part in this evening's event. And first of all, I would like to send President Pia Kauma's best regards to all of you. And she apologized for not being able to attend here this night. The civil society platform has been a very good partner to OBSE during the years, and we look forward to continue this work. But I would also say that I have a speech here, but I don't need to use it because it's important to just and it's not funny to listen as well. I have read the declaration and I find it very good. I think you are really concluding the importance of what to check today, and also you have included the environment we all live in today, and it goes hand in hand, as you have pointed out. And if I should say a few things about what we do inside OBSE Parliamentary Assembly, because I think that's more important than I am reading. You see that we have for a very long time an appointed MP who is special representative on civil society, who attend human rights weeks, to attend these kind of meetings. And I think that's a very good point, because it means that there is one member of the Bureau who is particularly responsible.
And you were the first to appoint. I mean, the OECPA took leadership before the chairpersonships.
Yes.
Appointment of Kyriakos as
Yes,
the
I did.
representative was.
Yes, it was me who did it.
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And we have also a special representative on political prisoners. And I think that's another very important thing, because we can't live in a free society where the civil society is respected. Where there is democracy, respect for rule of law, human rights, if there is political prisoners. Therefore, it's so important. But also you have mentioned Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. And I think this is one of the most important issues, as you have mentioned. Because what you could see is that when there is such a huge war, it fosters more war. It fosters more uncertainty. And that's one of several reasons why it's so important to continue to support an end of the war and to continue to support Ukraine. And we have in the Parliamentary Assembly also established a support group for Ukraine, where we are looking on the human rights perspective as one important parameter. But I would also like to mention here that one thing I see as an important tool for OSCE as a whole, where OSCE Parliamentary Assembly is one important part, is the election observations. With those experts, with OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, with OSCE, and where we are cooperating with other parliamentary organizations as well, like PASE, and I think it's important that the election observations continue to be independent and not be an issue for political decision. It should be based on the methodology that we will have by the work done by the experts from ODIHR, by the observers who are out the whole day observing what's happening. If we start to politicize those election observations, I think that would be a huge danger. And time is running very fast. I could say much more here, but I would like to say that the report you have done, it shouldn't be a paper to put in the box. It should be used. And I will bring it with me back home and use it in my parliament, which is Sweden. And I have heard several of my other colleagues who also are saying, this document is good, let's use it, because we see as parliamentarians that civil society is important, and we are ready to support the work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Focus of the Assembly's work on political prisoners that use their hands is very dear to our heart. Margareta was the rapporteur on the investigation of murder of Boris Nemtsov, and that was a very important role. And that brings us also to this day, because in this work Margareta cooperated with our dear friend Vladimir Kara-Murza, who is now serving a 25-year term in Russia, in prison. So that really is all very connected.
Thank you. I can't be quiet when you said that. Because Russia changed their laws and made it illegal to criticize the war. Vladimir Kara-Murza, a journalist, fighter for democracy, he was in Russia. He gave an interview to CNN. 2 hours later, he was arrested. He was holding arrest for a long time before he went to the trial. And now he is sent to Siberia for 15 years in prison. 25 years in prison, just because he criticized Russia's war against Ukraine. This is a terrible example on when democracy, when rule of law is not respected. And I really was pleased to read that you mentioned not Vladimir Kara-Murza and several other human rights fighters, civil societies, participants in your document. I think that's important. We shouldn't be quiet. We have to speak up and do what we can, because those who are in jail, they are not able to speak any longer. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, and we finalized our conference today, and sure we need to say thank you for holding our organizer committee and our guests.